for last week. I got some stuff working on the back end and was out of integrity, so I do apologize for missing you guys on the live. But we right back on track. We're gonna make sure that we are doing what we need to do on this wonderful Monday. Uh, Today, I wanted to have a conversation with the fellas about their consciousness, how we construct that into our character, and ultimately what that does for our connection. As if you've been rocking for a little while, you know that we do. And I got a question for you. Are you a top G? Are you a top G? You know, a lot of guys have been really paying attention to Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, and before that, they were paying to Kevin Samuels, God bless the dead, and I appreciate both of these guys, like both of these aspects, and we're seeing like all these other guys in the manosphere start to pop up, and you always hear uh you would always hear Kevin Samuels talking about being a high value man, or you always hear about Andrew Tate talking about being the top G. And the reality of it is, I was watching Abba and Preach, and they were like, everybody can't be the top G, because in order to be the top means that there's only one at the top. Everybody can't necessarily be the high value man who is the 6 or 7 figure, 10 figure, that's not 10 figure, 8 figure income earner, right? But what I started thinking about is that every guy can be epic. Every guy can be heroic. That doesn't mean that their epicness is going to be the top tier, but it does mean that they can be memorable, that they can have a space that makes them heroic. And I wanted to make sure that we talk about that because in this competitive nature from style and from life, we often believe that if we're not first, right? We play the Ricky Bobby Talladega Nights, space. Like if you're not first, you're last, right? And we forget that at the end of that movie, you know, uh, Ricky Bobby's dad says, "Hell, Bobby, I was high when I said that. You can be first, you can be second, third, be fourth, be fifth, right?" And just because nobody remembers second place, right? You hear these myths or these misconception or misconstrued conversations is not true. People do remember second place. Now, the world may not remember second place, but people in your community, people in your country, if you're in the Olympics and you're running, remember second place. They remember that silver medal. They remember that bronze medal. They remember if you just came in fourth, right? And that does not mean that you have not had success. That doesn't mean that you are not going to be praised and remembered. That doesn't mean that that is not the springboard to something else that will make you successful. Not to mention that just because you're not the top G doesn't mean that you don't have inordinate, like unfathomable value. Like when we think about even the Tate brothers, you have Andrew, who has been the face or the front of their whole conversation, for better for worse, what he's dealing with now. But then you also have his brother Tristan, who obviously can't be the top G if there's only one top G, right? But you have Tristan, who is providing such amazing and insightful value in his own right for that community, right? Whether you agree with it or not, he has his own perspective. He stands on what he is experiencing or what he deems important or valuable, and they slightly differ. And there's extreme value in that for those guys who are watching it. Just because Kevin Samuels had a great podcast and had an epic following, that doesn't mean that there are not other men who are providing epic and memorable and cultivated content for other people. I wasn't really a Kevin Samuels fan because he didn't align with where my perspective was. But there are plenty of other guys that I've listened to as a man who is about to be married, as a man who is focused on how to connect with a long-term relationship, being very aware of the potential shortfalls and pitfalls that can come with the marriage, especially if you marry the wrong person in that space, but seeing how it works and seeing how people have been able to stay together for years and years. My family members, on average, have been married for 25, 30 plus years. That's a good run. Like, even if it didn't work out, that's a good run to me. That's a space of healthy communication and healthy awareness that helps them learn, hey, we weren't a good fit for each other. And so we're going to move amicably. The other conversation that I've often heard, even in these manosphere conversations, is the misconception there, right? So you have these people saying that like you lose everything when if you're a guy who's just getting started or you're not making a certain amount of money, you don't have to worry about those things. So it's far better for us to focus on being epic and for us to be to be heroic than it is for us to focus on being the top. What if we could follow Jordan Peterson's perspective and say we're going to be 1% better than we were the previous day? What if we could say, hey, I'm going to make sure that I clean my room and I'm going to make sure that I'm focused on those things? Because for Jordan Peterson, who is a epic intellect, he's a person who's going to be remembered for years and years for his insights and his perspectives when it comes to psychology and when it comes to mythology, because he is a thought leader. He's a person who's married. He's a person who has children and who talks about the benefits and all of the wonderful elements that come with marriage and will be forever remembered there, right? And so there are so many elements of you showing up as the best version of yourself that help make you epic. But how do you do so? How do you end up becoming a epic individual that people will sing, mythic praises for after you are gone? And that may not happen in mass, but maybe it'll happen in your community. Well, first you have to remember that people are always watching you. Part of the reason why I am such a advocate and I'm always on the soapbox about men presenting the best version of themselves is not because I want you in a suit and tie, not because you got to follow the latest fashion trend, not because you got to be fresh to death, not because you got to show up as the top G if that's what you want to be. It's because somebody is always watching you. When I was in high school, I wasn't a guy who was dressing up. I wasn't a guy who was worried about his appearance as much, unless it was the brand or the logos that were the hot thing of the day, were the trend of the day. And I remember being in a church league and playing at the church that I was going to, playing basketball, and I was doing something. Doing something knuckleheadish. I was a monster. I was in my teenage years, and the one of the elders, one of the senior members were like, "Hey," pulled me to the side. I was like, "You acting up? You wilding right now?" I was like, "Man, it don't matter." And he was like, "It does matter because there was 5 or 6 little kids over there, over in the corner playing, basketball in the corner and trying to figure out moves." And he says, "Those kids are watching you." When I was young, and I was by no means close to this person, but like the little kids used to call me Michael Jordan because I was doing some things that they just were incapable of doing because they were 6, right? But for them, they were looking at this heroic individual who was doing these things and who was athletic and who was capable of giving them something to aspire to. So one of the first ways that you can be epic and you can be heroic is showing up as the best version of yourself because you know that somebody's watching. And maybe it's not a little kid. Maybe it's your coworkers. Maybe it is a mentee. Maybe it is a brother or a sister. These people are looking at you as an example, right? So if you're not following your true nature, if you're not standing on your square and being the best version of yourself, well, then you're doing a disservice to them because they are potentially going to follow in your footsteps. They've seen something inside of you that says, if they can do it and I follow their trajectory, I follow their steps, then maybe I can do that too. And so when you allow yourself to be undisciplined, when you allow yourself to be misguided and to say that there is only one way to be at the top, you do yourself a disservice because now you're going to misguide those people who are following you. And even when it comes to style, I always tell guys, part of the reason why I always show up as the best version of myself, even if I'm chilling, right? I'm not in a ripped up t-shirt. I'm not in ripped up jeans, knowing that that is not a true reflection of who I am and what I want to say to the world, is because there's other people who are watching. And they'll ask like, "Hey, bro, man, on a day like today, hot in the summer," they like, "Man, you not hot?" Oh no, like this breathes wonderfully. And they're like, really? Like, well, what is that? Oh, this is a silk linen sweater, so you know it breathes nice. It's gonna be porous and it's going to absorb sweat really really well. And they like, oh man, I've learned something. I'm able to take something else on. I'm able to try this on to see how it fits me. Or if I have a suit on or I have a jacket on and they're like, man, you not hot? And I'm like, oh no, this is a seersucker. And then I have a open weaved shirt on. Or I have a extremely light poplin shirt on. They're like, what's that? And so they learn something. They're able to take up something, but they are watching me. I've captured their attention, and now I've been able to infiltrate their curiosity so that I can open them up to a new awareness of themselves and how they can show up. The second thing that a lot of guys have to start paying attention to if they want to be heroic, and they are saying, how can I do this if nobody's really paying attention to me, is to be disciplined. And if you've been rocking with me for a little while, then I've talked to guys about being disciplined with your desires, disciplined with your dress, and disciplined with, excuse me, and disciplined with your D, right? You know what I'm talking about, right? So a lot of these guys, when I watch the top G's, when I watch these high value men, a lot of times they're not dealing with high value women. And there's no shade to them. You like what you like, you do what you do. But I see a lot of these women that are around them that I would look at in the club and be like, I mean, yeah, I'll take her home. I deal with her on that level. But she's not going to be a person, even if I was going to deal with a lot of women, that I would want on my team. Like there's a difference when you can pull the bad chick, the chick who is fine, but she's smooth, she cool, she know how to work a room, she knows how to operate, over the chick who is, you know, got the fake boobs, the fake booty, you know, the lip injections, got fake weave. All these things are fake, but then you want a real connection, you want a real relationship, you want a real woman to submit then. But everything about her is expressing that she is not real, that is counterfeit, that is fraudulent. But then I've seen some guys who really know how to deal with women get women who are professionals. I'm talking about professional. They doing their thing in the job, but then I've seen them when they one on one with some of my homeboys. They cooking, they taking care of, they catering to the man, and he may be dating 4 or 5 of these young ladies, right? I'm not telling you that's how to move, but there is something that is epic about that. If I'm pursuing that, I'm like, how the hell are you doing this with this level of lady? Right? Beautiful, successful, attentive, feminine, submissive in some capacity for where they are in their relationship. There's something that I can then adhere to and say, okay, what qualities do you have in order to create that in one relationship? I don't need 5 of these, because there's other things that come with that when you're also looking and experiencing the hero. You get to see the pitfalls of the hero's journey. But I can also say, how do you do that with one? I just want one. I'm cool with one. Right? And you can start learning these practices. And there is a discipline even in the diversification of the person that he's dealing with, or the people that he's dealing with how he moves. He is tactful in his conversation with who he's dealing with. He is also very attentive to the type of woman that he is engaged with on a one-on-one basis. Right? And so he's disciplined with that. And a lot of those guys who are able to do those things are very disciplined with what they desire from a woman, what they desire from life, what they desire from their business and their operations and how they move. And they don't allow for a whole lot of distractions or chaos in their space. And when that comes into the place, it's immediately cut off because they've made a decision that this is what I'm going after. This is what I desire. If you don't rock with it, then that's cool. And those people are also very disciplined with their dress. But discipline may look a little bit different to the untrained eye. Discipline may be expected for a guy who's in a suit and tie and that it's just very structured and tight and fits them. But the discipline that I'm talking about is a guy who simply just throws on a white shirt, throws on a pair of blue jeans, and a great pair of Stan Smiths. But what you're not paying attention to is that the quality of the shirt is so high touch. It's been tailored to fit in such a way that it's not tight, It's not constricting, but it allows movement. It allows energy to move so that he can be energy in motion. He's wearing a great pair of denim that has been broken in so that's properly tailored to the body, not so that it can show off his legs and his ass. He's not a woman. He's not trying to attract the attention of men who are visually stimulated. He's creating an energy that women can feel through his presence. And those white sneakers are plain Jane. They're unassuming. That doesn't mean that they are not the highest of qualities, because he's disciplined in his purchase power. He's disciplined in what he's obtaining. He's disciplined in what he's going to acquire, because he understands that men don't buy clothes, they acquire them, they own them. And the more that you're able to own something, the more you're able to allow that to be your uniform. And if you've been rocking with me for a little while, then you know that your uniform does three things. It informs the world about who you are. It creates your formulation of your thoughts and your perspectives, and it ultimately shows your state and your station in life. So if you're able to do those things, then that last aspect that makes you heroic is your ability to connect with the people. There's something to be said about Andrew Tate's ability to charm and connect with people. He's an amazing energy in connecting with people and breaking down the conversation and understanding who he is talking to, and when he needs to be firm, have a firm hand, and when he also needs to be much more uh, connected and kind-hearted. Not, I wouldn't say tender and I wouldn't say gentle, but just kind-hearted and receptive, and synergistic when he's having these conversations. And great manipulators, but also great leaders are capable of doing this. A great leader knows how to connect with his people because he's a servant to his people, and the servant has to be attentive to the needs of the people that he is serving. So he's anticipating the needs of his child. He's anticipating the needs of his lady. He's anticipating the needs of his peer group or his friends who are following behind him. And he also understands that there's going to be a bit of separation in how he has to interact because of it. And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of guys to do, because a lot of guys say that they want to be the boss. A lot of guys want to be the leader until it comes to the accountability, right? Everybody wants to be the star player of a team until that catch or that shot is missed. And then you have to deal with all of the scrutiny and criticism that comes with it. You got to say, yeah, it was on me, even though this was a team effort. There's something to be said about a coach. I'm reading this wonderful book called Thinking in Bets with my book club, and it talks about Pete Carroll in his uh in the season when they lost to the Patriots when Marshawn Lynch didn't run the ball, right? And so there's this whole breakdown of why the pass was actually probably the better decision than having Marshawn Lynch run on first down. Um, but the deeper conversation there for me in the context of this conversation was Pete Carroll's response. This was all on me. It was my decision. And if it would have worked and it would have been an incomplete pass, nobody would have said anything. And if it would have worked, I would have been a genius, right? But even if he would have been the genius, everybody would have been or he would have pushed the attention to the team. We had a great set. You know, Russell Wilson played amazingly. Richard Sherman played amazing. Marshawn Lynch really carried the team. It would have been nothing like, man, that was my coaching, man. My coaching was amazing, because the hero understands that it's about the people. If you've ever watched any epic movie about a king or a warrior who's coming through, he's fighting with a purpose. His purpose is the people. He wants to protect his land and the people of his land, the innocent people of who are incapable of fighting from the terrors and the terrorists that are trying to come and take over. What could be more noble? What could be more heroic? And that preparation for everything that he's doing, when you see him training and fighting, you know, his peers, when you see him training and doing all these different types of things, it's all for when he needs to show up at his best and he needs to be heroic. So if you're willing to be mindful, to have your mind full of the awareness that you are affecting the lives of others, that there are people who are watching you, you can then become disciplined in what you desire and how you show up and what you represent, and ultimately how that's going to affect those other people that you're serving as a king, then you're going to be heroic. You're going to be remembered. I had a mentor of mine who was helping me work through speech and through public speaking, and he was telling me about his father. And his father was a janitor, right? He was a custodian in I believe in a high school, and he had been a custodian for 40 years. And he told me about how embarrassed he was of his father because he was pushing him out. You've been pushing them out for 40 years. Like, you didn't want anything better. You didn't want to do better for your life. You didn't want to be more for your family. And he passed when he was young, when he was a very young man. And he was shocked when he went to the funeral because the funeral and the church was packed, standing room only, for somebody who was seemingly just a janitor. And that speaks to the epic nature of who his father's character must have been. The amount of conversations or bending his ear and listening to the young people that he may have been in conversation with, giving them nuggets of wisdom that they could have taken on and try on to see how it fits them. Right. So just because you're not the top doesn't mean that you are not epic or heroic. It is the little things, those little abilities that can affect people in just unimaginable ways. You'd be surprised when you're talking, having a conversation with somebody who really has an awareness of life, or has an awareness of love, or has an awareness of money, and seems relatively unimportant. That gives you that gem that sticks with you for the rest of your life. And it's somebody in passing. Now, they may not be epic or heroic or the top G to the world, but that means something to you. And so it's important for you to remember that if you can continually show up as if somebody was watching, that if somebody's going to hold on to the words that you say, and somebody is going to be connected to you because of the service of your words, the service of your style, and the service of yourself, then you're going to be remembered. It may not be by the world. You may not have millions of followers or subscribers, but that doesn't mean that you won't be like Tupac and affect the person who ultimately will change the world. So I want you to try this on, see how it fits you. And remember that even though you may not be a top G or top G yet, that doesn't mean that you can't be practicing the purpose of being epic and heroic now. And if that fits with you, right, that fits you, you're in the dressing room. I want you to take this out. I want you to show up and show out in life as well as in style, and share this with somebody else. I know it's not a whole lot of B-roll and cool stuff going on around here, but I think that there's some jewels in here for you, and some jewels in here for your team, your family, or anybody else that you think would benefit from it. Outside of that, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. Know that there are going to be some change. Well, Parks, I appreciate you, bro. I'm glad that you needed it, and I was glad I was able to serve you. Um, I want you to make sure that you stay tuned. Some things are going to be a changing, and I'm excited about that. And I'm gonna remember the folks who was with me in the beginning, because this is about to be up, and it's about to be up because this is what the world needs. And remember that I said it now, August 31st, 2023. That consistency is going to create something epic, and I'm glad that you guys get to be a part of it. If you are looking to develop your personal style, your personal expression, and show up as the best version of yourself as a king, warrior, lover, and magician, then make sure that you hit my Instagram via DM at Style Architects, StyleArchitects, and let's build together. Outside of that, you can also click the link below. It should be on there. If it's not, I'll get it up, and you can set up a time to work with me. Outside of that, be great today. But then again, you already are. You knew that. You knew that you already were. So now all you have to do is show up and show out in style, remembering that dress is nothing more that dress is nothing more than the expression of a man's state of mind. So you, yes, you should always dress to address your life and your style. I'll see you next time. Peace.